soul.
This is Bass Talk Live. Your host, Mark Jeffries and Matt Pangrack. BTL is brought to you by Lowrance, Lose, Strike King Lures, Bass Cat Boats, Ducket Fishing, Spro, AFCO, Big Bite Baits, Sunline, and TH Marine. BTL coming at you. Good Wednesday, everybody. Welcome once again to BTL Bass Talk Live, where we're going to talk bass fishing and anything else that we want to talk about. Yes, great show today. But, folks, I got to tell you, all right, Matthew came into the studio today, and he's got this monstrosity carrying it in his hands. And it's like a 20-foot rod. What the heck was that?
Nothing. It's just a 14-foot crappie rod. Obviously, you know, we're hooked up with the Bass Tank, who does electronics and
dude.
But they also, you know, do a lot of stuff in the crappie world. And I've been becoming very proficient with the Denali Prime crappie rod, which is a 12-foot two-piece.
This is a three-piece?
John Sukup over at the Bass Tank let me test out a prototype 14-foot three-piece.
I could do some Carolina rigging with that, man.
So, like 3 weeks ago, I was on a lake that's got big bass in it, but I was crappie fishing.
Yeah.
And I go over submerged stump, and I see on the graph, I see a big, you know, the big arch there where there's a fish down there.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, well, that's not a crappie. I said, but it could get interesting. So I dropped the crappie jig, and I have 12-pound braid on a bait caster. But I'm crappie fishing. I use the bait caster so it keeps the line neat. You can push the button. It's hard with the bail and all that.
Yeah.
I used to always look at the crappie guys with the bait casters and be like, I don't get it. Now I
you get it. All right.
So I got this 12-foot rod, bait caster on it, braid. I drop it down there, and it just goes boom. I said, uh-oh. I set the hook. It was like a 7 or 8 pound bass. Wow. Basically like dropping a drop shot dead, except I've got it on a 12-foot rod. That thing owned me. I didn't have the drag set because I'm crappie fishing. I didn't expect to edit. I mean, I had...
Did you get it in?
No, I had 9 feet of rod underwater going, no, running around the boat, and it just broke the braid.
Wow.
So, but yeah, it's an interesting experience. I'll tell you, it will make a 7 and 7.4. Like I use a 7.4 spinning rod a lot. It will make a 7.4 spinning rod feel like about a 5-foot ultralight after you crappie fish and then go back to bass fishing. You're like, what is this toy that I'm trying to catch bass with? But there's some interesting applications. You know, we were talking about the long rod with Bertrand and stuff like that.
Yeah. That's to the extreme, though, man.
Yeah, I think there's some untapped, and I've had some untapped applications with the long rod vertical dropping on bass during certain times of the year, potentially some spotted bass, some smallmouth applications. So
I'll tell you one place that would work is Table Rock.
Yeah, Table Rock. Think of Broken Bow.
Yeah, in the trees at Table Rock.
Yeah.
So
because you can with the long rod, you can get a vertical presentation of the fish without getting on top of them.
Yeah.
Especially in clear water.
So ginormous, man.
I tell you what, the Bass Tank and a couple, we're setting the trend in the bass fishermen posing with crappie. Yeah. I mean, I haven't had the time, but I bet I could go back and amass 40 or 50 guys who have posted crappie pictures this year.
Yeah.
Russ Slade, Jason Christie, Paul Mueller,
they're not really
Carl
fishing.
Jacobson.
Think about it, though. They're not usually fishing during this time of the year. They're usually tournament fishing, not fun fishing.
I understand.
So that's a big part of it. All right, great show today. It's been a while since we've had him on. We're going to have Timmy Horton on, and we're going to reminisce about the past. You know, one of the few guys, what's his claim to fame besides the pizza at Champlain?
Rookie of the year and Angler of the Year in the same season?
Yeah. So we're gonna talk a little bit about that.
I used to do. Remember, we used to do Duck It on tour, where I'd spend a day. We'd pick a guy from Duck It, and then I would follow them that whole tournament. I'd spend a day in the boat with them, every year. So I'd spend, if there were 9 tournaments, I'd spend a day in the boat with 9 guys, and then I'd follow them around kind of during the tournament, the whole 9 yards.
Yep.
Some of the most interesting in-boat conversations that I've had, and I mean, we're talking,
that's a lot of
guys there.
Yeah.
Some of the most in-boat candid conversations I've had, I believe, have been with Timmy Horton that I've really enjoyed. He's talked, while he's practicing. I specifically remember I went out with him on the Detroit Lake St. Clair.
Yeah.
And he talked about starting that company, the Profound, and then that Azuma line, all the crankbaits and all that, and about why he did that instead of going with the company, decided to get with the company, talking about it, talked about the industry, talks about tournament organizations. I mean, really interesting stuff. And I'm like, you can focus on practicing and stuff, but man, we got into some conversations on the water about it that I really liked.
Yeah.
And I don't really talk to him off the water, though. It's just like that one day a year for like 3 or 4 years. And the rest of the time, it's just like, hey, what's up?
Yeah. So, should be a great, great interview. As I mentioned, we haven't had him on for quite some time. So we're going to talk about what he has going on now. And I have mentioned, building up to this, probably one of the most active guys in throwing out content over the past, 6 to 8 weeks.
No, year. He's really ramped it up.
Well, I was talking about the break.
Oh, yeah, during the break.
Yeah. Yeah, during the break. So we'll talk to him about that, and then we'll get into his Major League Fishing performance and reminisce about some of the great stories. A lot of people may not realize, dude, he's been around forever. What was the year that he won Angler of the Year and Rookie of the Year? Do you remember what year that was?
Do that to me, 2001?
I don't remember. You're going to have to look that one up because I want to know that. I was going to look it up before the show, and I didn't do that. I want to let everybody know also next week.
2000.
It was 2000?
I missed it by a year.
Yeah, 20 years ago.
Fired.
Wow. All right. We are lining up a very, very cool week of shows next week. I have 2 booked already. And the first guy, I know we've had him on this year so far, but there's been some interesting developments in his life. And I actually talked to him a week ago, and he wants to come back on the show and talk about some of the things that he is dealing with right now. And I'm talking about Zell Rowland. Zell, one of my favorite guys, obviously top water guy and everything that goes on from a fishing standpoint. But there are some enormous challenging things that Zell is going through his life right now. And he said, hey, man, I'd love to come on and talk about it. So we're going to get Zell on next week, and I'm sure we'll reminisce about some things that have taken place over the past few weeks, and I'm sure we'll reminisce about things that have taken place over the past 30 years. So another appearance by Zell, and should be very, very interesting. All right, the next guy I have booked, and folks, this just got booked. I mean, within the half hour.
We started at 8:30 Central Time, and it got booked at 8:23 Central Time.
Yeah, been working on it and finally made contact. And this is somebody who is enormously influential in the fishing world for a very, very short period of time. And then he just kind of vanished. And there was a lot of discussion.
For a very short period or long period?
Short. That impact of when he was doing what he was doing on television.
Right.
All right. That was majorly impactful because it was opening it up.
You're talking
to an
about
audience.
Impactful to the general viewing audience that have no idea what bass fishing is.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm with you. I thought you were saying that he had a short impact in the industry.
No.
He's been around for a long time.
No. On the industry during that period.
100%.
Right,
mainstream. Cannot get any more mainstream.
No. But this guy has fell off the planet.
Fishing wise.
And I was like, I want to try and get a hold of him. And I've been reaching out, trying to find certain guys to get him on the show during this time. And with some guys, I haven't had a lot of luck, but I managed to track down Byron Velvick. There's a name from the past. He's going to be on the show next week. We've got him booked. And that should be a very, very interesting show. And when I was speaking with him, Matt, getting it set up, and he is he's going to open up. You know, a lot of people think that he left the sport because of certain reasons. He's going to explain why he left. And he is in full retirement mode, not fishing, not doing anything. So I don't think anybody's really done an interview with him since his
he did
departure.
he did the FLW emceed the FLW Cup.
And we're like, where
a
have you
couple
been?
years ago.
Yeah.
I think that was when he told high school kids to drop out, follow their dreams, and to watch Bass Live. It was all like a 30 seconds of just epicness. So you don't have the third show booked because I'm going somewhere with this to where we could just have a really great throwback week.
Yeah.
You want me to throw it out there now?
Throw it out there, man.
Dude, I'm going to give you some clues.
Okay. I'm waiting.
Moose.
Moose. Bondi?
Yeah. First one.
Yeah.
The Moose Tracks ice cream guy, John Bondi.
Yeah.
Now I don't know. He might be guiding during that time because he is huge in the muskie world, huge in the walleye world. Bondi baits. He's all over in fishermen, all over the multi-species, giant lake trout, killing it. But dude, that guy, remember, he was on the Elite Series and he had to cash, if I remember this correct, he had to cash like 2 or 3 in a row to be able to continue. And
That's right. He already told Tripp. He was like, hey, I'm done.
If I don't cash in the next 3, I'm done. And he literally finished like 51st in 3 consecutive tournaments where they paid 50. He's like, if that's not a sign, it's not. I'm out. And then he figured out how to build this giant hunk of rubber with a spinner on the back and treble hooks. And they're vertically jigging giant muskie, and he's killing it. He's doing great. He's doing smallmouth baits, walleye baits, and stuff. So that I would love to see him as the third guest.
I've got his number right here in the folder.
Plus, it would be very interesting to see how a small kind of, well, he's not small anymore, he's big, but kind of how a self-made bait company like this, who also relies on guiding and retailers for his baits, is making it through this kind of this scenario that we've all been in for the last couple months. Is that not a good idea, Mark?
That's a good idea. I'll reach out to him. All right. I have in my hands the 2010 media guide. I mentioned it last week.
Did we ever go through that?
No. That's what I'm going to do real quick. Bondi was not in there, though. What year did he start? Do you remember?
He probably was done by then. You know, he was Canadian.
Yeah, because it started in 2007. Six
was the first year. Yeah. So his last year was 2009.
Huh.
Okay, so I slightly exaggerated it. They paid the top 50. He finished in the first 3 because he was done after 2009. The first 3 in 2009, he finished 58th, 52nd, 55th. Ounces in each one, I remember.
Yeah.
So that was the difference between 30,000 and nothing. And then he came back. He fished some of the opens in 2010, 2011, one in 2012, and one in 2013, and that's it.
Okay. All right. I'm going to read off a few of these that I found extremely interesting, but I want to address something on the instant feedback real quick. Andy in Indiana wanted to know, how come you haven't had Hank Cherry on? Well, that's a good question. All right. Spoke to Hank. We both agreed that when an announcement is made about the schedule, that's when we're going to have him on. Because, look, man, he's been interviewed by everybody in the industry. And he says the same thing. What I want to know is, how has this time period either helped or hindered his classic victory? So in discussions with Hank, it was like, look, dude, let's do it different. All right, let's get you on when the schedule is going to be announced and things start going and you kind of have a direction on what the plan is, and then we can discuss how winning the Bassmaster Classic has affected you during this very, very challenging period for everybody in the world. So that's why we haven't had Hank on.
Did you go to the mailbox?
No.
Cover Bass Times, cover Bassmaster. Really good cover. So, I mean, he is the cover.
Oh, it's not like it hasn't been covered, but he even agreed. It's like, Mark, I'm saying the same things in every single interview that I do. And I was perusing around. Dude, there are podcasts out there I didn't even know about. I had no idea that they even existed. and guys doing it. Mm-hmm. So
it's like TV stations, man.
It's crazy, man.
You get like that
UHF.
Roku or the Stick or Hulu and stuff, and you start watching it, and you're like, there are some crazy TV channels out there.
Yeah.
Like I was watching one, I'd never even heard of the channel. It's like a dude who lives with his like 23-foot pet crocodile and like massage, like gives it a head massage every morning and stuff. I'm like, why? I've never even heard of this channel.
Yeah. By the way, did you see what the number one show is on Netflix now? It's called Outer Banks. It has 10 episodes.
No.
Yeah, I watched the whole thing.
What is it about?
It's I don't know if it's South Carolina or North Carolina. It's one of the two Carolinas.
Is it fishing?
No, not really, but kind of. But yeah, I watched the whole thing. It was pretty cool, actually. Not as good as Ozark without an S, but pretty good stuff. All right. Let's go back 10 years, and a couple of these guys I found very, very interesting. All right, Tommy Biffle. Tommy Biffle, what do you think it has in his, let's see, Did You Know? Because that's what they did in this section.
Did you know Tommy Biffle enjoys yelling at people?
No, everybody knows that, man.
Tommy Biffle had a knife sharpening company in his younger days.
Everybody knows that,
Let me
too.
guess that he owns Tommy Biffle Polaris.
No.
No?
No. It says, Biffle's two runner-up finishes in the Bassmaster Classics were to two legends.
One was Brian Kirchhoff.
That's one of them.
And Brian Kirchhoff, and was one Hank Parker?
No. 1990.
1990 would have been, was it Ken Cook?
No. He won a lot.
Clun?
It was Clun. But, everybody remembers the 94 Classic that Kirchhoff won, but there's a valid statement there. Nobody remembers who finished second.
If I remember something like Biffle had something happen where he should have like won that tournament, and then in hindsight, it was like meant to be for Kirchhoff.
Yeah. Interesting. All right, Stephen Browning.
Something about the great outdoor games.
Browning was a volunteer at the 1984 Bassmaster Classic. He was in charge of chauffeuring BASS founder Ray Scott to the launch ramp every morning. What do you think that ride was like?
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Had no idea.
You think Ray ever got the tassels caught in Browning's door? He opens the door, closes the leather tassels in his Miata.
I don't know. We need to get him on the show and ask him about some of the stories that were told. You think he remembers 84?
Oh, hell yeah, he remembers.
You think so?
Heck yeah, I remember meeting Kevin in 1997 at the Springfield Sports Expo. I remember at the Classic meeting Fishburne, and he had that computer game, the fishing game. And mine kept glitching. And I was a kid. And I'm waiting in line to get the autograph. And out of all the things I could say to him, I told him how disappointed I was in the functionality of his computer game. I said, man, it keeps freezing on me. How do I fix it, Fish?
Wow.
I remember he was like, I have no idea.
That's funny. That is pretty funny. All right, Terry Butcher.
That's got to be the rodeo deal on there.
No.
No?
No. Who is Edwin Evers' brother-in-law.
Yeah.
All right. Did you know? Weighing in at a robust 123 pounds, Terry Butcher was the number 3 wrestler in Oklahoma when he was in high school.
I did not know that.
I knew he was into the rodeo stuff, but I had no idea that he was
I don't know
was a
whether it's
wrestler.
good or bad that I know alternative facts about all these guys from 2010.
Wow.
That's what I was I was really took the job of covering that very seriously, Mark. Pretty much knew all the ins
Jeff
and outs.
Cannella. There's a name from the past.
What about Jeff Cannella?
That's pretty funny.
I don't know.
Cannella has been noted as being a serial duck hunter.
So
Says he duck hunts
a
over
lot.
60 days a year.
It's a lot considering duck season isn't that long.
Yeah, I know. So where are you killing ducks at?
I don't know. Hit me with a couple more oddballs. I would not have gotten that one on camera.
Guy Aker.
Guy Aker?
Yeah.
Well, you could go a number of different ways.
Yeah.
Like, you know. Is it something about the longevity of Guy Aker?
Yeah.
It would have to be something about how
at the time,
that he was the oldest angler on the Elite Series at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only reason I remember that was because he made a run for it in 2010 at Clear Lake when he was throwing a trap back there with Bill Lowen.
Yeah. Paul Elias.
Yeah.
You should get this one.
The Kneel and Reel?
No.
The 82 Classic?
No.
2010.
You actually did a story on this.
Oh, the Christmas tree.
Yeah.
Yeah, that he's a Christmas tree, a Douglas fir farmer.
Yeah. So
on a white pine.
There you have it. Back from 2010.
I didn't do too bad.
No, that's pretty good. We'll get into
decade-old facts.
We'll get into more of those here shortly. But that's it, man. What do you got planned for the weekend? You're going to Table Rock. That's right. Doing that. So you going to do a little fishing? Take that 15-foot rod with you.
No, it's a work trip.
I got you. All right. Sounds good. All right. We're going to take a break. Come back with Timmy Horton here on a Wednesday. Everybody stay tuned.
The ultimate fishing system starts with Lowrance HDS Live. Upgrade to HDS Live with a Ghost trolling motor, live sight transducer, or Structure Scan 3D, and get up to $500 cash back.
Yeah, you care about gear ratios, inches per turn, and ball bearings, but most importantly, you want reliability and dependability in the equipment you use. Luz doesn't cut corners when it comes to the gear they build. The new Speed Spool LFS is the best $99 reel in the market. Go see for yourself.
We've paired one of the most iconic hulls in the history of bass boats with a proven lineup of trusted accessories. We're bringing you best-in-class value and performance, leaving others in your wake. Turnkey value, turnkey performance. The Pantera 2 is an overachiever in the 19-foot category. Once you hit the throttle, you'll feel the rush, and there's no looking back.
Kevin, what are you doing here?
Oh, I'm just filling in for Billy.
I need 660 shad crankbaits in the Series 5 model.
We're out.
You're not out. You got all kinds of them right there.
We're out.
Kevin, I need 6.
Have a lollipop.
I do not want a lollipop.
Have a lollipop.
Do you have it the sexy shad color?
At Duckett Fishing, we have assembled the top pros in the country to help us design rods to give you a competitive advantage. Castability, strength, durability, action, sensitivity, weight and balance, and consistency. Combine that with the best warranty in the industry, and you have rods that are pro-driven.
Duckett Fishing, pro-driven.
You've been waiting all week for this, and Sunline wants to make sure you're ready for it with bulk spools of all your favorite fishing lines.
That's so fun.
Bulk up with Sunline.
All right, we are back on a Wednesday, and it is time to go to our special guest. And I got to go on the record, man. I know a little bit about this story, and hopefully we can get the whole story on whether or not he's going to tell us. Hopefully he will tell us, Tim or Timmy. What do you think it is?
Well,
Matt?
I think it has to do with the whole
Tim Horton?
Canadian
Yeah, the
deal
donut place.
to where it was and then it wasn't. And I think that's all in the past.
So is it Timmy? Because on the Major League Fishing website, it was Timmy.
Right, but I think that whole thing started with the they've got really good, like, you ever eaten, they have those, what are those crumpet donut things that have like the little ridges in them?
I don't know.
I always
have
get
no
those
idea.
at the
I have no idea.
But that's, I think,
like
why that
apple
whole thing
fritters?
started, where like they were like, you can't do that. And he's like, it's my freaking name. And then like it got passed.
We'll
and
get the full story here. Let's bring him in. Timmy, there.
Oh, you guys are cracking me up.
Is that
you
fairly
are bringing
accurate,
stuff from
though?
the archives. I love it, man.
Is that accurate?
Yeah, good grief, man. That was, it was Tim Horton. And first of all, it really didn't matter to me. I mean, I answer to both. Unless my mom says both names, then I know I'm in trouble, But, I don't remember what we had. We put something out. Maybe it was a fishing lure that had Tim Horton on it. And their attorney saw it somehow and got in contact with me and said, hey, I can't use that name, Tim Horton, on anything that I sell. And I thought they were just kind of, cracking jokes or whatever. So then I had to get an attorney, and the attorney started fighting. And Tim Tucker called me. I'll never forget it. I was at I think I was out at my hunting farm or something doing some work, and he called me, and he was just doing a basic interview, and he asked what I'd been up to, and I had just got off the phone dealing with that, and I told Tim that, and I didn't think we were on the record. You know how Tim Tucker, he just rolled, and Tim did what Tim did,
Yeah.
And the next day at Bassmaster.com, the lead story was Tim Horton versus Tim Horton. But that was a blessing in disguise for me, because I had not talked about it publicly or anything. I was just dealing with it, and unfortunately had attorney fees going out the door. And did you know that they called me apologizing, and I don't even know if that attorney kept his job. Once they dug into it, they were cool with it, but they did ask me, could I work around using the name Tim Horton, and I went back to Timmy. It just was what it was. But yeah, that was kind of a crazy thing, no doubt.
Here's a question I want to know. Did you ever consider Timothy? I mean, you had several options there.
Hey, or it could be every time I see Aaron Martins, it's Timmy. Oh man, there's about 3 of them. Zona does that. You can tell the South Park fans for sure, because every time they see me, it's Timmy.
Yeah. All right. We were reminiscing back from 2010 in the media guide, and under your name, back then it was Tim Horton, it said Horton entered his first bass event in 1996 and turned full-time pro on the Elite Series in 2000. Do you remember that first tournament in 96?
Yeah, that was, I believe that was Lake Gaston, and it was the event that was supposed to be on Bugs Island in the fall, and they had a hurricane come through, and they moved it over to Lake Gaston, and a guy in Arkansas won that event. He really, I don't think he competed much longer. It was a strange deal. He caught him deep cranking, but that was pretty cool. I'll tell you a very funny story with that event. So I'm wide-eyed, bushy-tailed, getting into the sport of pro bass fishing. And David Fritz, as you guys remember, was winning everything at that time. The Fritz splits, and just so I had this guy tell me, he said, nobody's going to out-practice David Fritz. He's gets out there before everybody. So the first morning I find this boat ramp, and I put in, and David Fritz's truck is the only truck in the parking lot. And so the second morning I leave 20 minutes early, and it's like an hour before daylight, and his truck is still there in the parking lot. The next morning I leave an hour earlier, and I seen him at the briefing that night, and I come up and introduced myself, and I told the story of trying to beat him to the boat ramp. He said, "Oh no, I was staying at that house next door. My truck and boat was there just all week long." He had his boat at a boat dock, and that's where his truck just so happened to be. That was funny, but yeah, that event was on Lake Gaston, I believe.
Wow.
I'm looking at it now. It says you didn't catch anything.
I did. I zeroed. Finished last.
You finished 296th.
Hey, let me.
There were a lot of boats back then. A lot of boats in those tournaments.
Yeah, I never caught. Hey, you know how I drew out on day one? My day one partner was Rob Newell.
No way.
Yes.
Rob Newell,
yes.
if you don't know, Rob, if you watch the BPT, he's their on the water reporter, has done the Cups as their reporter there, and then longtime guru with FLW, and then did the co-hosting of FLW Live for 4 years before going over to MLF and the BPT. I think that's a brief rundown of Rob Newell's career.
Yeah. It was. Rob had just graduated from Auburn, and I had just graduated from UNA. We were kind of, he had fished a few events before then, but we were both fascinated with making a living in the sport, and it's pretty cool looking back on it now. That was a cool deal. Very first event I fished, drew out with Rob Newell.
Wow. All right, Timmy. We have talked about this. Matt and I have discussed this. Dude, you are throwing out just some amazing content for the fans and really to help people catch more fish. You got to be one of the busiest guys in the business. What has it been like over these past 8 weeks putting together that content? And is that really kind of the MO for the professional of 2020? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think if I'm not working every day, I kind of get a guilt about things, and it just getting out working. But it's also having good folks around me. We've got some strong people that really enjoy it as well. They enjoy the editorial. They enjoy the cutting the stuff up. And I sure enjoy getting out teaching and talking and sitting in front of a computer, looking at what we did and putting together a neat production. But I think that has been, and I think you've seen other anglers really jump on it as well. I know Brent Chapman and I were on the phone the other day, and he was talking about heading out and trying to get about 10 or 15 videos done for the day. And sponsors have directed that as well. And that's a smart part for them to do because, during the good fishing season, we're so busy, it's hard to go get good content to teach folks about fishing. And I just think it's been that's been a little bit of a silver lining in this downturn, and also seeing all the folks out fishing. Man, when you go to my home lakes here, since everything shut down, it's just the boat ramps are so crowded, and kids are out fishing everywhere. So that part has been a little bit of a silver lining. I know Alabama's a little bit different than every state. Some states have even had the ramp shut down and lakes shut down, but that part has been pretty cool, and definitely love teaching folks to catch more fish.
All right, what's a crazy story that you can share with us over the past 8-10 weeks while you've been filming all of this content out there? What's something crazy that has taken place?
Man, you put me on the spot. I was hoping I could go back and tell some stories from days past.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
Man, something crazy that's happened. This ain't really crazy, but just the smallmouth on Pickwick has been off the chain. I haven't seen it like this in a long time, and I don't know how these lakes turn and how they cycle. But that's been really cool to see. We've had a lot of fun catching a lot of big smallmouth. We did a deal the other day with David Walker and myself and Bobby Lane and Stephen Browning that was really cool. And I think that's something that you're going to see in tournaments coming up. I know you guys were kind of on the forefront of doing these challenges and folks fishing against each other. I think the concept of having the earpods in and communicating with each other while you're competing is something that's really cool. And I think we're going to see more things like that. And I know I was with Matt at Boyd's at Lake Guntersville a few years ago when you guys were starting up some of that, and you guys were on the forefront of that technology. I think seeing how cool that is to be able to communicate and say, man, Steven just caught one, or man, Bobby Lane, and then talk to him right there directly about how he caught it and hear his excitement. I think some of that was pretty cool, the things we've done.
You mentioned Pickwick and how many people have been fishing in Alabama. Let me ask you this question. Compared to a normal tournament season, you've got BFLs, Costas, team tournaments, clubs, all sorts of stuff. Not going into it, but as we started to get through this where things were canceled and quarantined, we're like, man, these fish are not going to get pressured for a year. And then as you go out and fish, practice your social distancing, you're like, there's a lot of other people practicing social distancing out here. And I come to the conclusion, and you would be perfect at Alabama fishing around so much. Do you think the fish have gotten more pressure this year or less pressure because of the lack of organized tournaments that are going on? But it seems like everybody's out on the water bass fishing.
Yeah, I think it's a different kind of pressure. The tournament anglers, whether it's the high school, college, or even up to the Elite Series in Major League Fishing, that's a group of angler that really pressures fish in a different way, from being able to find fish differently. What I have seen more is guys getting out with their kids or grandkids, and people that really maybe don't get to fish quite as much, so they're kind of drowning crickets, as they say, and doing some things like that, which is awesome. Regardless of how you're getting kids out fishing, getting them out there is the key. But man, it's probably a catch-22. I think it has been just as much, but probably not pressuring the bass that are located that the tournament guys can find.
All right, I want to go back to 2000 now. We're gonna reminisce from the past, and I remember it was quite some time ago. We had a feature called In the House, and it was kind of like MTV Cribs. Your house was one of the house. I came down there, I filmed it, and I was really, really impressed with the fact that you took me by the house that you were in right prior to you winning that Angler of the Year and Rookie of the Year in the same year in 2000. And man, folks, if you don't know that Timmy has absolutely worked his tail off to get to the point that he's at today in his career, it was still amazing what took place in the year 2000. All right? What I want to know, when that happened at wherever it happened at, whatever tournament it was, I can't remember, that final event when you locked up Angler of the Year, who were some of the first anglers that made contact with you, Tim, and congratulated you, and what do you remember after that final weigh-in to where you were crowned Angler of the Year?
Yeah, one that sticks out, and I've still got it in my office, probably 4 or 5 days after I got home, I got a handwritten letter from Dee Dee Brower. And that was really cool. That's something I'll never forget. And I remember all of the guys, really. Larry Nixon reached out, KVD. We came to the next event, and Kevin is so a matter of fact, and granted, there's been better seasons since then, and that was fresh on the mind, and Kevin was flattering me, I know, but he came up, he said, congratulations on the best year I've ever seen. So just hearing guys say stuff like that was really cool. And I remember at the Angler of the Year banquet, gosh, I was so nervous. We were in Chicago, and I couldn't even talk. I had never, I was straight out of Spruce Pine, Alabama. I never really spoke in front of a big crowd like that, where everybody's dressed up and you're in this big ballroom. And my voice was cracking so hard I couldn't even get through my handwritten speech. I mean, it was just so embarrassing, and it was getting worse and worse. And I told this little joke that my grandfather had wanted me to tell. And when I did, the whole room busted into laughing. And when that happened, it relaxed me, and I was able to finish my speech that day. But that was so cool to watch these guys and then get out and compete against them. I remember when I won at the Potomac that year, and Larry Nixon and George Cochran and Kevin and David and Jay Ellis and all of them were in that final round. And that was probably the moment that I thought, man, this, I'm maybe starting to make my mark in this. And it was really cool, because I don't know. And that's why I love getting in the boat with Matt when we used to do, the events where we filmed the practice days, because Matt's a history buff like that. And I was such a fan of all these guys. I could tell you everything about them, every red man they won. And that was a neat aspect to see those guys and come up and talk to me about it. It really meant a lot. But probably the letter Denny wrote me meant more than any of it.
Wow, that's awesome.
Speaking of being in the boat, one of the things that you talked to me that I don't think we've ever talked about on air or off air is you're talking about the passion and the drive. And I remember you talking about this, and you told me, and I want you to kind of tell the listeners, explain it more. You said during that time, that kind of early 2000s, 2001 to 2004, you go back and look at your top tens and your check cashing in that, you said you were so driven that it physically hurt you, that you were so driven to catch the next fish, and that it was your soul. Just kind of talk about what that was like, because I've tried to apply that to me, like how driven am I in the local levels, in the Bass Nation, in my local tournaments. But the way you explained it, it was like, dude, this guy is devoting every fiber of his body during this time to being the best angler he can be.
Yeah, it was. That's cool that you absorbed that like that, Matt. And the only way I could explain it is that it was unquestionable. You literally were at an event, and as soon as that event was over, you were thinking about the next event in every waking minute, how you were going to catch a bass at that, and it fueled a unexplained euphoria that was just constant all the time, and I think you hear some guys in different sports talking about how the zone feels and that euphoric feeling of knowing, and it's pretty cool to see some of the guys that are experiencing a lot of that right now. And I think it's an age thing too. I really do. I think I say that, but look at what Edwin has done the last several years as well. But it was just something you couldn't quench, and you could not get enough of it. You could not wait for the alarm clock to go off. And when 4 p.m. got there in the evening, you were frustrated that you only had 2 or 3 hours of daylight left. And it just created that lifestyle of that's how it was every single day. And it was a fun time. And you mentioned through 2004. I would probably say 2004 was a better season for me than 2000. It was just spread out over some opens and an FLW event. It was funny, you were telling the John Bondi story earlier before I came on. I was watching you guys, and I had 3 events in a row. It was an FLW. I fished one event that year on Wheeler where I lost to Aaron Martins by 4 ounces. And then we had an open back on Wheeler like 3 or 4 months later. It was the very next event I fished. I finished second to Danny Brower by 6 or 7 ounces. And then we had a tournament at Eufaula 2 weeks later, and I finished second by less than a pound again. So it was three possible wins in a row by less than a pound, and 3 tournaments in a row. And then the Elite Series went really good that year too. That was probably when I was feeling it. This sounds crazy, but it's almost like you can feel, like you can see through the water and know what's going on. I know that sounds like, oh my gosh, what's he on? But you actually can feel like you can feel where the bass are and what they're doing. It's really a cool feeling.
No way to get that feeling other than time on the water and confidence. That's the only way to get that, correct?
Yeah, no doubt. And not having anything else going on. It's funny, I've watched Ott Defoe get hooked on turkey hunting this spring, and Ott has always, he lives in East Tennessee, and he's not a University of Tennessee football fan. And he doesn't hunt at all until now. And I love how his relationship with Mossy Oak has brought him into that, because I laughingly told Kim yesterday, fishing is about to go down a little bit into springtime, because, and you see this with guys that are so focused in tunnel vision, you can only have so much of your capacity, of your time and your energy going towards certain things. And when you start getting other things going on, it's you see that. So that's why I think that age group, like what Wheeler's doing now, and some of them, and Jordan Lee and those guys, when they get into bass fishing, that's all they do every day. They wake up. There's not a lot of other things going on in their lives other than I'm going to catch the next bass. That's when you see those streaks go like they do.
Tim, I want to talk real quick about the mental game, and I remember some situations over the past 12 years. Where from an intensity level, dude, you are one of the most intense anglers on tour. It doesn't matter what you're fishing. But mentally, from a confidence standpoint and how to apply that intensity, has that changed with you over the years? In other words, do you let your temper control you? Because let's face it, that intensity transfers over to your temper, and I've seen it happen, and it's not a matter of you being a bad guy or a good guy or whatever, dude. That's just the intensity that you have as an angler. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think I think and I've told this story before. I think early on when I got involved, I was thrust into the kind of the politics of the sport by being elected to the advisory boards, or whatever we called them at that time. And I did. I took things probably way too personal, but it was never a selfish personal thing. It was always for the group. And probably from that aspect, that goes back to talking about a single focus and being focused on certain things and being aligned with not thinking about other things than catching your next bass. So yeah, some of that probably happened that way, and it definitely is a deal. I remember hearing a story with Ichiro, the baseball player out of Japan that played at Seattle, And I remember reading, I don't remember if it was an SI article or something. I was sitting in the doctor's office one time reading an article, and he was talking about, they interviewed a guy that was a prominent first baseman, and Ichiro was on first, and he always talked to the guy who's on the, trying to get his lead to steal second. And he said he remembered being in a conversation with him, and Ichiro is answering the question in the middle of the conversation and takes off and steals second. And that he just talked about how his laser focus, and he kept everything else out of his life. So that's definitely something that, talking to anglers that are up and coming, beware of getting involved in some of that stuff, because sometimes it'll take away from your fishing. But I don't regret any of it. We've seen a lot of changes that were good, and but yeah, from that standpoint, probably should have stayed focused on fishing a little more on summer.
Well, do you think your mental game is better now than it has been ever in your career?
I think I think things have changed in my life as far as fishing. I enjoy probably providing for my family or teaching someone to fish as much as I enjoy holding up a trophy and saying, hey, I caught more than you. Now, don't get me wrong. When we get to a tournament, I absolutely love that. I love the challenge of winning. I think we started seeing things change in our sport 6 or 7 years ago, where before, the only way to go tell people I want them on this lure using this rod, reel, and line and this technique that I believe in was to win a tournament. And through other outlets, through other web outlets that covered our sport, and also through our own personal outlets, we could make a difference there. And that's where I really started turning a lot of my energy, owning a lure company, Profound Outdoors, and being able to see, okay, this television show or this on social media or this in tournaments really becomes a web of being able to put all of that together and seeing what sells product and what moves product, and having we take it personal. I ain't kidding you. Here on the show and things that we do, we have a list of all of our sponsors in the deck, and we take it personal what we're doing for every one of them. And hey, have we done something for Happy Herd this week, or what can we go tell our fans about this product? So that has changed as far as you mentioned confidence in what I want to do and what I get out and do every day, and it's just a big part of it. When I get to a tournament, here's what happens to me, Mark. I'm so addicted to finding schools and catching them offshore. I think that probably hurts me more, and I have gravitated towards, hey, I'm just going to go do that instead of worrying about points. I'm going to try to win, and that's probably hurt me as much as anything. But man, I still love it, and I look forward to us getting started back for sure.
With all you have going on, I'm just curious, when was the last time that you hooked up the boat and went to the lake and it wasn't tournament prep, shooting, social media, anything? It was just you, and the only person who knew that you went fishing was you.
Now, that, with just me, man, I would probably go back 10 years, 10 or 15 years.
Wow.
That's tough. Now, a good buddy of mine, Ashley Stanford, who I grew up fishing with, he works for Nissan North America, and they've been off, shut down. He works out of Nashville, management there, so he can't. So he and I just went out 2 days ago, and I said, you know what? We're not taking any cameras. We're not taking anything. Kim was catching up on things at home. I said, we're just going to go fun fish, and I did. I had a blast. It was incredible.
And I guarantee something happened during that trip where you go, oh, I wish I had the camera rolling.
Yes. Hey, we caught up two big smallmouth. They come up schooling, and I'm like, man, we could get a show done quick. But anyway, hey, and then I thought, well, I'm on with Matt and Mark in a few days. We're going to come here and train wreck them while we're talking fishing. But the wind, I'm looking outside, and it's going 30 miles an hour today. So anyway.
Wow. Hey, when you were growing up, what was your favorite fishing show to watch, Timmy?
Man, when I loved them all, but I would probably say, oh man, probably the Bassmasters, no doubt. Yeah, the Bassmasters was my favorite. I love the competition. I love seeing what the guys were doing. I love the stories, man. I love, the Stump Restaurant at Sam Rayburn and how that was featured, and just all of the history and the places that was going on at that time, and how the sport was coming into its own. I couldn't read enough. I couldn't watch enough. It was just, and I think what this generation doesn't realize wasn't accessible like it is now. So you had to grab it when the television show come on or when the magazine came. You had to just dive into it, and then you read it 10 times. So where now, you can watch 15 or 20 different new deals either on YouTube or on social media daily. So that part of it is different.
All right, we're going to do this. We're going to take a break and come back with questions from the fans on the instant feedback. So everybody hold tight. We are coming back with Timmy Horton here on a Wednesday. Everybody stay tuned.
Let's face it, fishing electronics are no longer an afterthought. They've become a necessity. And at the Bass Tank, our experts match you with the right electronics, provide professional installation, and educate you to help maximize your catching results while providing support along the way. Because let's be honest, it's about catching, not just fishing. And when you're ready for better results, join the Bass Tank team. Visit us today on Facebook or go to thebasstank.com.
Blue Water by TH Marine. Offering LED lighting solutions for your boat, trailer, truck, ATV, and so much more. Engineered and built to be rugged with waterproof and submersible options. Designed for easy installation, Blue Water is available in a variety of colors and styles. All backed by a limited lifetime warranty. Blue Water by TH Marine.
The name SPRO says it all. SPRO stands for Sports Professionals. When you look at the pro staff that SPRO has brought on board over the past 15 years, it's been pretty incredible. I mean, one got it just then. From the development of the rock crawler to the McStick, from the Fat Papa to the Little John series, when you tie a SPRO bait on, you know it's been designed by a professional to get the job done.
As a professional angler, you've got so many things on your mind. Any advantage that we have is key. And not only rods and reels and lines and baits, but in our clothes. And the guys at AFCO, they have something for every situation. There's nothing AFCO hasn't thought about with the fishermen in mind. It's designed for fishermen, by fishermen, for every scenario you can come to. Any fish, any water, any condition, AFCO has you covered.
All of us on the Pro Tournament Trail use Gamakatsu hooks.
Why?
Because they are absolutely the best.
It's not about how many bites you get.
It's how many you put in the boat.
Gamakatsu makes hooks for every fishing style.
We didn't come this far to lose fish.
Did you?
For more information, visit gamakatsu.com.
The Big Bite Baits Kamikaze Swim-On is a very unique bait, and it's got a full body but with ribs to give it a bigger profile but not more plastic. It's got a jointed tail that gives it a lot of action, as well as this up and down crawl type trail with holes and ribs in it, so it creates a bubble trail almost. This bait is supposed to be fished upside down or vertical like this on a great for a chatterbait. I prefer it on a swim jig as well, but you can also cut it down and put it on the back of a finesse jig. Flip it around for some spotted bass or flipping docks. Anytime you want a small, compact, little trailer for it, this is great for it. So check out the full lineup of swim-ons at bigbitebaits.com.
All right, we are back with our special guest, Timmy Horton.
I checked during the break.
What'd you check?
I checked for Jeff. Timmy does not remember what boat number he is. Remember Jeffrey's? I remember that from like a year ago.
Yeah.
He's got a boat. It was in the 2003 Classic, and it's got number 24 on it. And he's like, dude, if anybody can find it. I was like, well, I'll ask Ken Duke. He'll know it off the top of his head. I said, that's a no-brainer. Ken Duke couldn't even figure it out.
Yeah.
So Timmy doesn't remember what boat number he was in the Classic. Because that was back when they gave you all the same boats. And you rolled up and you had the same electronics. Back then, didn't you even have... Had they done away with you get one or two tackle boxes? I know they were still doing that in the late 90s to where like you could fill up they had the sponsored Plano tackle box. And the rods and stuff, like if you broke a rod, you couldn't replace it, and whatever you could fit in that Plano. I know they used to weigh it, but I mean, even in the late 90s, because I know it was like that in 98 because I was there.
Yeah.
And I remember a Federation guy broke a rod, couldn't replace it.
Mm-hmm.
Was it still like that in...
I can't remember when that stopped. I know they relaxed on the amount of tackle you could bring before they did rods and reels. It was always a limit, I think, of 10 rods and reels. So that was always a challenge, especially if you went to a lake like Lake, where you may have cranking and flipping and everything going on. But yeah, that was some
Could you
lot of
imagine
game
that?
planning.
10 rods and reels?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I guess you could say that. I think that is Ike's, and if I remember, that would have been the never give up moment.
Yeah, that's what it was.
And I do believe he was leaning over a pile of rods when he screamed it.
Yeah.
So either he had every one of his 10 rods on that side of the boat, which I wouldn't put it past him, or they had relaxed their restrictions by then.
Yeah, that was crazy times. Ain't no doubt. That was a cool win for Ike. It was.
All right, let's do this. Let's go to the instant feedback. First up, Russ wants to know, your win at the Big O seemed like an epic surprise. Such a cool moment, though. Did you really think that Ott had the winning weight?
I did. You know, I had such a brutal day, man. I went down south and oh man, I was stubborn. I should have never went down there. I got there and the place was chocolate milk, and then still I moved around down south, tried to find fish. This is how crazy my morning went. So I decided, well, it's too rough to run the lake to go back up. It was done blowing 30 by then. And so I run the rim canal. Well, I get all the way to Moorhaven, and they've got the canal shut out. That comes out into the monkey box. So I had to run all the way up north and coming out in Fish Eating Bay. I know that's kind of getting off on a tangent, but man, to get relaxed and catch 5, and that was all I caught. I thought Ott had it won. I could not believe the weight when it was called out. That was really cool.
All right, Dennis in Illinois wants to know, do you remember what the toppings were on the pizza that you ordered from Lake Champlain?
I think it was pepperoni and mushroom. I have to tell that story too. You know, every pro that bass fishes knows Wes, the camera guy. Wes has probably filmed more tournament days than anyone I know, and Wes was my camera guy for that day. And we get back to the dock, and I came in because I was worried about the weather getting up, and I didn't fish up north, so I didn't know where there were any off limits. I didn't practice up there, so I just said, well, I'm gonna go in and tie up. Well, Tripp said. He said, yeah, Tim, that's fine, but you have to stay right here. And Wes starts getting his stuff getting out of the boat. And Tripp's going, where are you going, Wes? He said, man, I'm going to load up and take all the footage to the trailer. And he said, no, you're his observer. You got to stay with him the rest of the day. And Wes is all deflated. And he says, well, can I order pizza? And Wes and Tripp says, yeah, if you can get them to bring it down here. So it was Wes that ordered the pizza. And but I think probably pepperoni and mushroom, it was pretty cool. He started filming it. And that was one of the rare occasions, man. They went live to ESPN Sports Center while that was going on. So that was just a really cool moment in how that came about and where the sport was with ESPN at that time. But that was a neat moment I'll never forget.
13 years ago. It would have been 2007. Wow. How often does someone talk about that? I mean, it's the most talked about regular season tournament in professional bass fishing history.
It's pretty cool, man, because I hear club tournaments will pick on each other that they come back and have pizza, you know, and Ish always says it, you know, at a tournament when he's doing well. So it was a cool moment, and you never know how things are going to transpire like that. And it was so cool. And that was such a rare deal at Ticonderoga. There was not much vegetation down south on Champlain that year. And I found that school that was so good out on the very end of the practice day. It was like, remember we talked about going daylight to dark. Mm-hmm. It was like 9 p.m. I mean, it didn't get dark up north till like 9:30. So the next 2 days I spent the whole time, and I found 4 more of those locations. What's crazy, on day 2 when I caught 25-12, I didn't go to that rock pile until day 2, and it was the best of all of them, and I never fished it again the rest of the tournament. Because I would go to that other one and the lead kept growing. I thought, well, I'm going to save it. I made 5 casts on it on day 2, and that's not the one that was showed on the show or anything like that. So that was just a magical deal where you get a rare moment where these guys that are so good, nobody else got offshore. Everybody was still in the grass, and it was just it was incredible.
No
Just
one tried to move in on you? You know, you didn't have any fellow competitors where you were like, get the hell out of here.
You know, nobody was moving offshore and looking at stuff. I tell you the funniest thing on this story, and y'all don't hold this against me, but this is hilarious. I tell this one some, but so day one, I'm probably 300 yards off the grass line, and if you guys know fishing grass lines, you might as well be on the next lake. And everybody's fishing grass lines, so I'm 300 yards offshore, and I made 5 casts on that spot when I got down there that morning, and my jig never hits bottom. All 5 casts, my jig never hits bottom. I catch 5 fish for like 21 pounds. Well, I kind of move up into the grass and fish the rest of the day because I didn't want to run everything else. And Byron Velvick picks up a lipless crankbaits and just starts going out. And he's just like, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, if he gets around it, you know, he's going to whack them. And he gets probably 50 yards off the grass line, and he's searching, you know, he's looking. And I'm thinking, man, and I'm up flipping grass, and I got a 1 ounce weight punching the grass, and I'm thinking, if I could just catch one, you know how we all are. You know, this ain't, I would have did the same thing Byron did. If I see somebody catch one, I'm probably going to get right back in the grass. So I'm making a pitch, and I said, if he turns around and look this way, I'm going to set the hook like I got a bite. And so my bait's halfway in the air, and Byron, I can see him fishing, and he turns and he looks, and I set the hook, and when I do, I caught a 515. I had not caught another fish all day long. Now, had I picked up, I would have felt that fish bite, but I'm just going to do a phantom hook set, and I do a phantom hook set, and my rod loads up.
On a 6-pounder.
With a 6-pounder. And so that was kind of a funny story. Of course, Byron comes on back in the grass, you know, but yeah, that was a magical week. It was just incredible.
Is Ticonderoga one of those just epic spots in this country, Timmy?
Can't explain it. You can go there in the worst August, September, and they're built like tanks. I mean, the 3-pound largemouth frames there are 4 1/4. I don't care if it's the 1st of June or if it's late October. It's so fertile, and it's just an amazing deal, you know. And you know, that's what I was looking forward to. On you know, the biggest deal with Ticonderoga is always getting back or getting down there. And with our Bass Pro Tour format, that would not have been as big an issue, but that northern end of that lake has also come on with largemouth too. But it's just one of those, when you get on them and you get dialed in, it's nothing like it. It's incredible.
You're a mind games guy, because I remember I was doing the Duck It Out tour with you on Kentucky Lake, and you didn't fish all day, and you're graphing, and you're graphing stuff that other guys aren't graphing, and anytime you'd get around other anglers, you would decoy graph. You were graphing I remember this. I don't hope I'm not giving anything away. You were graphing way up on the flat, looking for rock piles and shell beds past the drop. But anytime there were anglers around, you would jump out and make it look like you were graphing the ledge. And you said, dude, they can't see me up there because they know that I know what I'm doing. I'll tell you that. I'll tell you, this is how good Timmy Horton was with his graph that day. And I bet you remember this. You were graphing, and I'm just sitting there filming the whole thing. I didn't have the camera on at this time because when the camera's off, that's when the cool stuff happens.
Yeah.
And you go on that shell bed right there past the Paris Landing Bridge there when you're going down lake, I guess, on Kentucky, on the right-hand side there. And you go over it, and you go, God, those are some good-looking marks. He said, think they're catfish. And he said, they could be bass. I think they're catfish. And you go over it again. Do you remember this?
I do, yeah.
And he spins around, throws a trolling motor down. That was before spot lock, anything. And he makes a cast out, and he gets his bait down there, and he goes, dang it, yep, those are catfish. Just ran over one with my crankbait. And I'm like, okay, Tim. And he reels in, and he's got 2 foot of slime on his line right above the crankbait, where he idled over it, spun around, made a cast, brought it over the catfish, said he brought it over a catfish, and then he went back to fake graphing.
I love it, man. Love it. That was a fun one. Yeah, I guess just being addicted to looking offshore and seeing everything, that was cool, man. That's cool. You remember that. You know what I remember about that day, Matt, when we were out, when we started getting dialed in just up above the bridge there, was how side was starting to really happen on units and seeing those fish off the side. I don't know if you remember this, but we would literally graph up a bar and see one and wouldn't even put the trolling motor down and stand up and catch that fish.
Oh my gosh, this is blowing my mind. You want to really talk about decoy? Remember what you did to James Niggemeyer? You hooked one on the crankbait, and then you went, crap, I didn't see that. That's James Niggemeyer right there. And then you sat down and lifted your rod box and pretended like you were getting rods out of your rod box. You remember this now? James is 50 yards from you, and a 6-pounder tail walks with his crankbait in its mouth. Whoa, 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 whoa. Tim's sitting down there, and he goes, I believe I have just been caught. He stands up, and he cranks it in, and then he said, man, if anybody sees it, James will take care of me. And then James, being James Niggemeyer, idles over and goes, hey, Tim, I saw you catch that fish, man. I just want to let you know that I wasn't planning on fishing it, and just because I saw you here, you won't see me here in the tournament. And I'm like, what the heck is going on?
Yeah, James is awesome, man. He is he's a cool guy. That was funny.
That's 4 decoy stuff.
That's part of it, man. That's strategy.
Oh my gosh.
That's part of the strategy. All right, back to the instant feedback. Let's see here. Hang on. Oh, Mark in Minnesota wants to know, do you think with a number of fall fishing tournaments that is going to hurt some of the anglers on tour, because most of the time a lot of the guys are hunting during that time? What are your thoughts?
I think when we get started back, we may see a different dynamic. Television changed, and that's a real good question. Because when the rut starts and the guys that love to hunt, man, it's hard to get that off your mind. But television really changed our sport from everything going to first quarter, and you've really seen the guys that love to fish shallow really dominate the last several years. And if you think about it, by the time it gets summertime, we go up north and fish. So I think I would guess, and I'm just speculating here, I don't have any information. When we get started back, I think you're going to see the northern states not allow us to come up there just because they have stricter regulations on travel. So I think when everything does start back, you're going to see some summertime tournaments in the southeast and even some fall events. And I look forward to some of that. But, the guys that do love to hunt, to answer that question, I think they may have their mind elsewhere a little bit, myself included. That's a hard thing to separate. So that'll be interesting to see for sure.
All right, James in Pennsylvania wants to know, you're one of the best deep crankers of all time. What is the best way for somebody to improve their deep cranking game?
I would say, and this was, I go back to when I got into the sport. I laugh. I tell people we wear our socks the same as we did as teenagers. When you, no matter how old you get, you know what I mean when I say that, guys. But we're influential in that time frame of when we're learning it. Man, you got a kick out of that.
Because Jeffries wears the knee-high Nike socks, and I still wear the ankle socks. And I know what's stylish is the mid-length now, but Jeffries still goes high because that's what he wore as a teenager. I go ankle because that's what I wore as a teenager.
Exactly.
So continue on with your story.
Yeah, Jeffrey's got the Michael Cooper look going on. So anyway, so like I said, when I got into bass fishing, and my fascination with learning it was David Fritz was winning everything crankbait fishing, and I literally got to where I had to leave my gear at home other than crankbaits if that's what I wanted to learn to do, because I would get out and I'd do the same thing. So I think that would be the biggest tip. Is man, leave the other stuff at home when you're just going out fun fishing. Say, I'm going to learn to deep crank today. And deep cranking is you look at KVD or you look at, the guys that really, really, really do well, they learn to fish that crankbait and it catches big fish. It's definitely a dominating technique.
All right. Do you watch what other guys do? Do you get out and watch the YouTube? Do you watch other fishing shows? What do you do, Timmy?
I probably don't enough. I guess I'm just so busy with everything I got going on. I don't watch it probably enough. I am fascinated with other guys and their technique. I probably get too caught up in doing what I've done and continue to do that. And just like I talked about trying to graph, if we went to the Ohio River in July, I'd be trying to graph them, But knowing I don't need to be, but I probably need to watch that more, but I just stay so busy, I probably don't do it enough.
All right, Austin in Alabama wants to know, any tips for deep cranking spotted bass in the summer on the Coosa chain?
Man, it's shallower. They get on. I love cranking on the Coosa chain in the summertime, but it's more of a 5 to 12 foot depth deal, where the Tennessee River is more of a 15 to 25. And boy, you can get on some giant loads, because the Coosa chain is so good shallow 12 months out of the year that's what the majority of that group of anglers fishes. But I know Russ Lane and some of those guys that have dominated, Kobe Carden and all of them, on the Coosa chain in the summer months. They find those big schools offshore, but shallower, 7, 8, 9 foot of water.
All right, this is a good question. Eric wants to know, he watched the latest Timmy Horton on TV, and you were punching with an 8-to-1 gear ratio reel. Others say use a slower reel for more torque. What are your thoughts? What do you suggest?
Yeah, and I heard Greg Hackney tell this the best one time. Really, when I'm getting a fish out of cover, it is all rod. If you're getting a fish out of cover by your reel that's that heavy, that's a lot of leverage. So it's really a pull as hard as you can, reel down enough slack real quick, and pulling with the rod to get that fish out of the mat. So the faster the reel, the faster that I can reel down and pull back again. So really, I'm using the leverage of that rod to get that fish out.
All right, there you have it. Good stuff. What are your thoughts on the 2-pound rule?
I like it better. It really fits my style a lot better. You can tell by the great finishes I've had so far this year. That'd be a funny thing. But I do. I like it. I think it really keeps that 1 pound bridge fish catching deal over and over, guys. We've seen it at Eufaula, and we've seen it really play out this year so far. And man, that was one of the frustrating deals we had about everything getting shut down. That part is seeing how that was translating to our fans was really fun to watch. So, but I'm a fan of it.
All right, Ryan in Kentucky wants to know, what's your favorite crankbait rod?
My favorite crankbait rod is one I designed. It's a 711 Pro Series for Duckett, and I really, really like it. It really loads up and launches real well. And rod and reel, there's 2 techniques in fishing: flipping and pitching, and deep cranking, that you really have to have a certain setup that's going to let you do better. And you need a rod that's going to load up, almost a bow and arrow effect, because the length of that cast is everything. And then a reel that has big line capacity. I use that Lew's BB1 Pro simply because of the line capacity that it holds and how long it will cast. So that would be my setup there.
All right, Andy wants to know, any talk or discussion about doing another Legends event?
I have not heard anything on that. Boy, that was a lot of fun last year, guys. You would have been amazed at Roland Martin at 80 years old. And boy, you talk about taking me back. You guys asked earlier about older fishing shows and what was my favorite. I can remember the TNN days with Roland and Bill and Jimmy and in-fishermen, the Bassmasters, all of it. But being in the boat with Roland, and we were on school and topwater fishing, we were running it down and hopping up, and that was just really cool to do that last year. It was really neat.
All right, how important electronics when it comes to deep cranking?
Oh, it's everything, and being able to know what you're seeing and have confidence in them. I like the Ray Marine stuff. I really like how clear it is. But regardless of what brands you use, guys, I would say the biggest thing is don't just cut them on and use them. That's probably men, myself included, don't like to read instructions or user's guides or user's manuals. We're going to figure it out. We all feel like we are. That's one thing you need to take advantage of to learn how to use. Everything else in our boat is reliable, and that's all we need is reliability and good performance. Knowing how to use those units is probably the difference I see in the guys that are really successful, regardless of the level, at the weekend level or at the highest level, of being able to use those electronics and catch fish. That game has changed. When I came into the sport, you guys were talking about Tommy Biffle, and I mentioned Denny Brower. You really had a contingent of 75% of anglers who fish shallow. And when we went to summertime tournaments, you had about 15 to 20% that could win. Now, don't get me wrong. I watched Denny win offshore at Pine Bluff one time. It was one of the coolest tournaments I've watched. My favorite Denny Brower victory was him winning offshore, throwing a jig at Pine Bluff. That absolute favorite. But the thing about now, all the young guys that are coming in that are good, if it's James Elam, if it's Jacob Wheeler, whoever it is, those guys can do deep out offshore just as good as they can up shallow. So I think learning to use your electronics is vital.
And in order to be successful in this business now, if you do want to become a professional angler, there's a couple of questions, and I'm tying them both together on the instant feedback here. Is it necessary to be very, very good from a media perspective in putting together videos and content along with catching fish? Do you have to balance both of those now to be successful?
Yeah, I think first of all, you need to have success in the sport to have some credibility for people to recognize you, maybe to learn from you. I think it works both ways. That definitely is a good perspective. I remember early on, I was trying to get sponsors, and I drew out Clark Wendland. I was fishing an amateur event on Bugs Island in an FLW event. And I asked Clark, I said, man, what's the biggest tip you could give me on getting sponsorship to get started in the sport? And Clark said, completely forget about that and concentrate on catching them. When you catch them, the rest will take care of itself. I don't know that holds true today. I think that is important, and it gives you credibility. But also, I think if you're willing to hustle, in the aspect of teaching people to fish, putting together cool content, I think that obviously there's a place where guys can make a living at that may not tournament fish at all. When you look at it, we are in the entertainment business. We are in the educational and entertainment business. That's what we do. It doesn't matter if you have a website. It doesn't matter if you're covering the sport the way you guys do. We are in an entertainment and educational, and if you get out and hustle and you enjoy it, first of all, if you enjoy it, you're going to hustle, then I think you can make a living. But I definitely think there's the aspect of the tournament fishing and the wins at the high level definitely give you the credibility.
Just to clarify that, are there better anglers on all three tours making less money than inferior anglers with a more well-rounded social media personality portfolio?
There is, and you have to put yourself in the in the sponsor's perspective. I mean, look, social media has changed. We talked about earlier, when I was a young angler, I could not wait to watch the TV show or read the magazine, and now it's instant. If you believe in products and you're teaching and you're showcasing and you're using those products and you're involved with your fans, you can take some people that do it at an incredible level, and you can even look at my generation. I can name, and it was hard for people in my generation. I could probably name 4 or 5 anglers that came into the sport at the same time that I did, and they were reluctant to really get involved in social media, and they were reluctant to go out and do their own footage, and more importantly, they were reluctant, and let me give a tip out that's going to help someone else catch fish. And you can't have that mindset today. You've got to enjoy. Man, if I have someone come up to the weigh-in and they say, man, I watched your show and you did this, and I went to my lake and I caught fish doing it. If that don't move you and make you think, hey, I'm doing something, making a difference from someone, you're probably not going to make as good a living now as the guy that just says, man, I'm keeping all my secrets to myself and I'm going to go win as many tournaments as I can. That's not what the sponsors are looking for. It's immediate sales. When you can go out and you can film using products that are working and go into your office and put stuff together and go out and do videos on it. It definitely has changed it, man. That's a really, really good question.
All right, Russ has a follow-up to that. He wants to know, what's more difficult, grinding it out on the water or grinding it out trying to get sponsors?
I I would probably say that's about the same. Things are competitive in every angle. You know, you're competing against those same guys winning, and you're competing against sponsors. And I think sponsors become relationships as much as anything else, and getting to know those guys and knowing that you're going to bat for them. If you take it personal that, you know, regardless of if you're representing a small company that maybe just does a few things, or a big mega company, and you're taking that personal and working hard for them, but I don't know which one of that grind is more so. It's all a challenge, and everybody. Look, we're all wired different. You know, you take somebody. And I'm not going to name names because I'm actually bragging on them, and I don't want anybody to think I'm throwing them under the bus. But you take some guys that could just care less about social media. They don't even know how to get onto their own social media. But guys, they go out and dominate winning. That's their focus. So we're all wired different, and that's the beauty of this sport of bass fishing. I don't care if it's relaxation of a guy who works in a cubicle all week long and he's going to get out and that's his place on the weekend, or if you're that high school kid that says, I'm going to be the next KVD. You know, that's the beauty of our sport. You can do so many different things with it, and doing it for a living. Look, Rob Mule's made a living by very first draw, and I've made a living. And I think that's the cool part of our sport is if you're passionate about it and you love it, you can make a living at it, finding your niche in it.
All right, man. Really, really, I want to know, okay? I know you've been heavily involved in the industry from a bait standpoint over your career. You have your own company now, Profound Outdoors. But I want to know, what is your all-time crankbait for deep cranking?
Man, I know this sounds
outside of the Z-Boss.
Yeah. I can't say
outside of the Z-Boss.
We know that.
I had to throw that in. All right, I'm gonna tell you one that really changed me, that I had to have when fish were getting out deeper and we were discovering deeper fish, was probably that hot lips. Lure Jensen made that great big hot lips that had that funny bill. It was shaped funny, and man, you could dig 22, 23 with that thing. And I think that was probably the one that I would have to give you an answer on. I love the old Post stuff, the Post 300, 400, the BD7. I probably want as much money on that. The Bomber BD7 is any of them early on. And also I believed in you. Mark Rose would tell this story all the time. You know, when I worked with Pradco, you did not find anything else in my boat. That's just the way I was. If it was not part of what I was doing, then, you know, so when that transition happened and discovered that Lure Jensen hot lips, that was one that I would probably say, but Matt, definitely the Z-Boss. I love that lure.
As far as then in deep cranking, if you had to pick one color, one thing that I've noticed across is, I think you call it, I don't know if like the pale rider, or the kind of the hot, it's the sharp, I'll use Strike King, because Keith Combs always says it like this: chartreuse, powder blue back. That's how Keith Combs. What is with that color? And I mean, every deep cranker, when you look across it, chartreuse, powder blue back is a standby.
It is. It's there's something about that faded blue, and that's a good word for it, the powder blue, that is just phenomenal. And you know what's amazing to me, and you look at sales, Pale Rider, we will get an order for Pale Rider and it'll be 20 lures, and I'll say, okay, that guy fishes, he cranks. But it is probably one of our least selling colors, because people want to buy the flashy stuff. They want to buy, but you can tell the guys that really do it for a living. But yeah, that powder blue chartreuse side is everywhere you go. Texas, Alabama, it just is a fish catcher, man. It just catches them.
Check your sales in about 12 hours.
I love it, man.
Yeah. All right, Dennis in Oklahoma wants to know, anything new coming out from Profound here over the next few weeks, months?
Yeah, we've got a pretty neat little prop bait that we've been working on that we're pretty excited about. The Z-Boss 8, listen, guys, we got shattered. It was killing me. I'm like, when I found them fish the other day, I'm thinking, I'm not even going to be able to do this interview. Matt's going to be so geeked up watching us catch these shad spawn fish. And then, like I said, the wind got us today. But that Z-Boss 8 is a brand new lure, and it's a smaller crankbait that hits about 7 or 8, and it just, man, it comes up like this. You guys that crank know what I'm talking about. You can just see the belly of it when you bring it up at the boat there. But pretty excited about that one for sure.
Turns over. Turns over the boat. Digs underneath the boat and then turns over, and then the last 2 cranks, it kind of pops free.
Yeah, that's it. Mm-hmm.
I got a question. You ever caught a fish on your 14-inch lizard?
I have. Hey, listen, let me tell you, when in California, like sales are, I'm fascinated by seeing this throughout the country. Like we have a black square boss that is a black square bill, and I would say 90% of those sales go to Arkansas. It's amazing how things trend in certain parts of the country, and those black square bill crankbaits, and ours is almost a solid black that they really like. But California, and I don't know where they throw them at in California, but we sell more of that 14-inch lizard to California than we do anywhere else. So it's just pretty cool to see how that stuff trends.
Huh. I'd like to see that at Falcon. 14-inch lizard at Falcon.
Put that thing on a big Carolina rig, and
someone's at the door.
Sorry about that. Yeah, doorbell.
Oh wait, no, it's either. Is that a grandfather clock or the doorbell?
No, it was the doorbell. Who was it, Kim?
It's the
pest control guy. He always lets us know when the outside near the critters.
He always comes in here too.
Yeah.
Remember, we were going through a rough patch several times. He came in. We were just yelling at each other. The guy's like in the corner of the room. We never stopped yelling at each other. The guy's doing the pest control all around the building. He leaves. We stop and go, wonder what that guy just thought.
I know. That's pretty funny. That's an epic moment. All right. Ryan in Kentucky wants to know, do you ever crank with mono?
I do not. I strictly crank with fluorocarbon. I don't crank. The only thing I really use mono for anymore is top water in limited situations and real clear water. But I use braid a lot now for even on my top water fishing.
Huh. You know, Russ kind of has a point here on the Instant Feedback. Is the lizard one of the lost lures that guys just don't use anymore?
It is. It's a strange deal, and it makes you wonder why. But, you know, I really think fish get conditioned to seeing things. I feel you're going to see a boom in the lizard again. And even a Carolina rig, man. I love still fishing a Carolina rig out on, football jig kind of took that place. But I love fishing that lizard, man. I do. I haven't fished it enough. We all get caught up in what we do. It's like I go throw a Carolina rig on and just put a Ringo on now. Yeah, he's outside the door here. I'm going to start yelling at him here more. Oh, he's outside the window there. But yeah, it is kind of a lost deal, but it's just like the spinnerbait. Look how the spinnerbait has came back the last few years in some really big events. And because of the chatterbait, it kind of went away for several years. But neat to see how that stuff comes and goes.
All right, Matt wants to know, I don't know what state he's in. The rod that you mentioned, your favorite crankin rod, is it glass? Is it graphite? Is it composite? What's the makeup of it?
Yeah, it's graphite. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I know a lot of cranking guys like composite or glass, and I've even used that in the past and was a preferred choice. But I think with resins and everything now, they really match that up good, and I just like the more sensitivity that graphite gives you.
All right. Let's see here. Clay from Arkansas wants to know, when you're fishing deep like that, do you try to make contact with the bottom at all times?
Yes, I do. I want my crankbait to hit bottom. So if I'm cranking a place that's 12, I want a crankbait that'll at least go 14, 15 foot. Definitely trying to hit bottom.
All right. Jim wants to know, is there any additional technology or features that you guys are going to add to your bass boat that's going to give you an edge? Right now, it seems like, power poles, the imaging that's available, spot lock. I mean, what's next,
Live
Timmy?
sight, live scope, down imaging, 360.
Technology, it's amazing. I've never seen how quick things change as they're changing now. And I think you're gonna see these images on these fish and it tell you what they are in the future. You could practically tell it now if you know what you're looking for. But it's absolutely amazing.
What % of the guys that fish on a pro tour are dialed in with their electronics, are up to date, and know how to use what is out there now and know what's coming down the pipeline? And what % of those guys are behind the curve?
would say 60 to 70%, Matt. But look at our schedules. It just doesn't. I mean, you look at we just got back from Lake Fork, and I graphed the whole time. It just and here's what gets me, guys. So we go watch that, and Brandon Coulter catches them offshore. You guys have no idea how that chapped me, and I love Brandon Coulter, and I was happy for him. But the rest of the guys were fishing shallow and bedding fish or fishing for bedding fish they can't see. If you look at our schedule, guys can get away with the whole season without being just superior at that. So it would be surprising to say that I would say probably 60% are really in tune with it, and probably 30 to 40 are kind of catching up when they have to.
Yeah, which is shocking numbers because you would assume. I mean, you have summits and meetings and guys say, hey, ever come here for the weekend, we're going to show you how to use all this. But then you get in the boat with some of the guys and they turn the damn thing on and they're like, I don't have that, I haven't done that, my transducer got knocked off, I think that thing's crooked. And I mean, they're at the top of their game, they're competing, and then you see the guy like Jacob Wheeler with the 3 different units and all that stuff. But in any given day, I mean, I would assume it's situational. But guys are still excelling with the stick the rod in the water and see how deep it is versus guys with 20,000. And it's an interesting dichotomy on how, in a sense, it's you don't know, or you can't miss what you don't know you have. And then in the other way, it's like, can you go too far one way where you are taking some of your instinct out of it?
Yeah. Hey, Matt, does that number surprise you? You've been in enough boats.
No, that's about what I thought. I would say about 60%.
Right.
I mean, there's still guys out on tour that don't know how to vertically drop a drop shot down to a fish on a 2D sonar and catch it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a lot less than there were in 2008, 2009 when you guys started going to Buffalo and all that. But
yeah, and these are in the anglers Matt's talking about, some of the most dominating, best anglers in the world. And the way our seasons are now, it just we go pre-spawn, go up north. And that's just that has changed it as much as anything. But that would be a surprise. And see, the college level is not that. They are not. They kind of go a little bit more post spawn if you look at their schedules because they're not trying to get into TV. They're not trying to get into first quarter. So that has definitely changed it up. But the newer generation coming up, they're pretty much all adapt. You did not see just shallow water anglers that are coming on and the Justin Atkins or the Jordan Lees or the Jacob Wheelers. These guys can do it all, and that's a big difference that you see coming on.
Did you ever use a paper graph?
I did not. That was a little before more time. I was hooked on the flasher in the beginning, though. I had the flasher on the boat probably till about 2001 or so.
Wow. Have you seen some of those paper graphs and see how the guys used to really kind of map out stuff on the paper graphs?
I have, and I've heard stories of them, and probably was ahead of its time in the way that it could paint a picture better than the digital, the digital lights in the units. So it's pretty cool stuff. And go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, do you think a flasher is important today, even with all the technology that we have? I know some guys that still have them on their boat.
Yeah, I would say real-time 2D, even up running, is that right-hand bar that you're getting is a flasher. It's just continuing to paint the picture all the way across. So I don't know that it's necessary anymore. If you simply look at it from a logical technology standpoint, I know last year I could be up running at what's the lake in New York we go to? It's like 180 foot deep.
Cayuga,
yeah. And you could cross that lake and have bottom contact the whole time, running 60 miles an hour. So I think probably early on being able to have bottom contact, nothing was better than the flasher, but I think the advanced units that we have with the power in them now, that they can keep up with it.
All right, man. This has been really, really great, but I really want to know your opinion with everything that this industry is dealing with right now. There's a lot of discussion how things are going to turn out. I mean, what are your thoughts, Tim? You're a business owner. You're an angler. What are your thoughts?
I think the first knee-jerk reaction was when the country shut down was, oh my goodness, obviously we're all worried about the economy, and we still are. I think you get up and you work every day as hard as you can, and you let the chips fall where they may. When you look at what Shaw just went through and what Aaron went through, that I think we got lots more to worry about than the economy and how many fishing lures we're going to sell and all of that. And you just get up and we have enjoyed family time. I look back at your bowling pins behind you, Mark, and learning your story with bowling was kind of cool during the break. But like we literally have sat and played Wii bowling 30 nights over the last 2 months with the family, and it's gotten so competitive. So some of that aspects, I think, regardless of what's going on in life, try to find the positive and work as hard as you can. I love Aaron's attitude and just, he came into the sport. We become a family out there, and we get competitive. Man, I got into it with Aaron one time at Grand Lake, and I was so frustrated with him, and he was so frustrated with me. But when you get off the water, we're brothers, and that is my family. And I've, Kim and I have prayed and just, so I think from the perspective of what all's going on, I think when you have life like that, and sometimes you don't have to look forward to see, hey, there's bigger things in life than us being stuck in for a few months here.
Yeah, it's well said. Well said. Do you think we're going to have college football this year?
That is a conversation, as you know. I know you guys in Oklahoma and us here in Alabama. Man, I don't know. They would probably break doors down before they tell them they can't go have some college football. Yeah. But I'm still 50-50 on that. I think a lot is yet to come on the virus with antibodies and some kind of vaccine or something like that could come along and could change things really quickly. And I think our economy, I think this is a different situation than 07 and 08 when houses were upside down. The economy was as strong as it could be. And this was an unforeseen thing that just came along. And I think you're going to see guys, I don't think you're going to be able to get into a restaurant when they open back up for months. That's how crowded it's going to be. And, I know everybody is riled up, ready to go. And I think we live in a resilient country of proud, hard workers. And I think you're going to see everything get back sooner rather than what the media is saying.
All right, man. Can't thank you enough for taking time out. The content that you're throwing out there is unbelievable. So, folks, if you haven't checked out what Tim is doing online and on his TV show, you need to do it. How can people watch, Timmy?
Yeah, everything's Timmy Horton Bass on all the social media channels, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. And then we're on the Pursuit channel on Timmy Horton Outdoors. We air 4 times a week. You can go to TimmyHortonOutdoors.com to check that out. Hey, our numbers have just jumped through the roof. I guess people are home being able to watch TV now. So it's funny. We got our Nielsen ratings in last week. Kim said, "Oh my goodness, look at this!" And so that was pretty neat. Appreciate it. Appreciate everyone watching and doing all of that. And I appreciate you guys, Matt. Love fishing with you. Mark, I don't know if you remember this, but remember when we were at the house that one time and we're outside taking boxes and man, I used to work for UPS. Let me throw these together for you. And now I find out you're a borderline pro bowler. You're just the Forrest Gump of the bass fishing world.
Yeah, I've dabbled in a lot of stuff, Timmy.
He was a pro bowler.
He's
taken on Walter Ray Williams, the Norm Duke. Yeah. He's bowled against them all. He was on tour for 2 years. You didn't know that?
I love it. I didn't, man. That's awesome. Hey, I tell you, I know you guys got to go, but I tell you something funny. I'm coming out of a boat ramp in the middle of backwoods, Florida. I could not have been more in the middle of backwoods, Florida. And Kevin Worth calls me, and I hadn't heard from him in forever. I said, "What are you doing, Kevin?" He said, "Man, I'm right behind you." And him and Chucky Economo were fishing that lake that day. What are the odds? Wow. 1 in a million. But I say that because Kevin did a Kentucky Derby, and a lot of people don't know he was the skate derby, roller derby, where they went around the
Kevin Worth.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, one of the ones on TV doing that. And as good
Wait. Like the roller derby where you see the giant chicks like checking each other and stuff. Yes. That he did that, like the guy's version of that?
Yeah.
Yes, and slinging the little guy around. He was the one that got slung around the ring, to catch up with everybody. So.
Yeah, you know what that person's called? Dude, I was into roller derby when I was a kid. It was called the Jammer. And the Jammer had the helmet, and he had to pass everybody, and then after he passed everybody initially, you got a point for every person that you passed.
And he was the little slingshot dude.
Yeah.
So he was the professional roller derby and a professional jockey and a professional bass fisherman.
We're going to try to get him
and
on.
And now he does horseshoes, right? He's a shoer?
Horse feed. He's a horse dentist.
Yeah, dentist.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
I still got his number, man. We'll try to get him on.
I've seen some horse dentistry going down over the past couple years.
I'm sure you have.
It's crazy. They put tubes in their throats and tie them up. I mean,
yeah,
horse teeth are very important.
Yes, they
pay
are.
a lot of money to make sure the molars are in good shape. You have to take the caps off of younger horses.
We'll get
and
Kevin
stuff.
Worth on.
They can get
talk horse
infections,
teeth, okay?
abscesses, all sorts of stuff in there.
Jeez,
horses
man.
go to the dentist more than me.
I'm
they
sure
also get massaged every 6 weeks and adjusted by the chiropractor. They get new shoes every 6 weeks.
He's right.
They take 3 or 4 supplements a day, and if you mix up their morning supplements and their afternoon supplements, they get the craps. That's how balanced their stuff has to be. I'm not joking.
That is way too much horse information. Yeah. Good grief. All right, man. Tim, it's been great. Thank you so much. We'll get you back on here hopefully later in the year. But, man, just an awesome job with all your content, and wish you the best on the remainder of the season, and be safe, man.
Hey, I appreciate you guys, and I appreciate you guys being a part of this fraternity with all of us, man.
All right.
No doubt.
All right, man. Take care, Tim.
All right. See you guys.
All right. See you. There you have it. Tim Horton, man. That was good stuff.
It's a good interview.
Yeah. Really, really good stuff. And he has, man. The dude has worked his tail off. And I think a lot of people out there that may catch his television show, just channel flipping, don't realize how long he's been in this game.
Yeah, he
and
has.
how far he's came.
I mean, dude, I think he got a little, I don't know what the word I'm looking for. I don't want to say apathetic, but I don't think it was fun for him for a number of years towards the end of the Elite Series.
He was angry.
Yeah.
He fished angry.
He was not having fun.
Yeah.
And he was not doing well. He definitely sounds like he's having fun again, and kind of has caught a second wind, even though so far the results haven't shown it. But I mean, like I said, technically we're 13 tournaments into this, and it's changed, from the 1 to the 2 pounds. So I mean, you don't have a large sample size to go on, and you're always one tournament away from being the man.
Yeah. No, you're right, man. Good stuff there. All right, tomorrow I'm actually, hopefully, keep my fingers crossed, going to have a canned interview for tomorrow. It didn't work out to where he could be on the show either tomorrow or Friday. So I'm going to try and do that interview this afternoon. That's what we're going to have out there tomorrow. No live show on Thursday or Friday, but back on Monday. And then Tuesday and Wednesday, we're going to have Zell Rowland and Byron Velvick, and I'm still working on Monday. So
you got to try to get John Bondi
and Kevin Worth. And hopefully I can get a hold of Roy Hawk. I haven't been able to get a hold of Roy Hawk.
About that mystery 16-pounder.
Yeah. So working on all kinds of stuff, folks. Another great week here on BTL. I cannot believe that you're going to go to Table Rock Lake and not fish at all.
You got to pay the bills somehow,
especially this time of the year.
Pay the bills somehow.
Are you taking the 15-foot rod or whatever it is?
No, I'm taking a camera and a mic set.
Yeah.
So this is what I used to do all the time. I film 2 or 3 times a year now.
Yeah.
It's weird how it's got to transition.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, enjoy. I'm still not buying that you're not going to pick up a rod and reel and do some sight fishing because I guess the fishing up there is just
Guess where a lot of the
fire.
guys are? Guess where a lot of the Elite Series guys are right now?
Where?
Lake Eufaula, Alabama. You know why?
Why?
I think it's going to go down in a month.
Really?
I think it's going to happen. I think we might have some Elite Series action.
Huh?
And they're going to hit it. They're hitting it before the off limits. I mean, they're practicing for a professional bass tournament.
That's a good thing. That's a good thing. All right, everybody out there, once again, please subscribe to us on YouTube. And if you're an iTunes listener, make sure you leave a review and give us a rating. It helps us out immensely. You have no idea how much it helps us out when you leave us a review on iTunes. So please, please do that. All right. Special thanks to Timmy Horton once again for being on the show today. Great stuff. Everybody be safe out there. That's it. We're out of here.